I've been saying it all year, 2023 is the year of the knife. How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And let me know in the comments section down below, can you think of any other year that's had more innovation, more new designs, more amazingness, more competition between manufacturers to give you the goods that you've been asking for? Let me know. And while you're down there, if you could do me a solid, smack up that like button. Let YouTube know that you enjoy this kind of content. Today, we're going to be talking about this Begg Knives Astio, as well as 3 other knives from their current lineup. They're doing some amazing things this year, and I think that it's high time that we talk about what they're doing over there in California. These are 4 knives from Begg Knives. Let's go. In front of me, I've got 4 knives from Begg Knives, and again, huge shout out to them for sending these my way so that I can check them out. The knives that we've got today are the Bodega, which I've already done a video on. If you want to check it out, I will go over it again, but feel free to check out that video that I've already done up in the corner. We also have the Astio right here. This one is a Jared Van Otterloo design. This is the Mini Glimpse, which I'm really excited to talk about this one. And then also we have a brand new design from them, also a Jared Van Otterloo design. This is the Diamici, which has not been released yet, but it will be soon. And I'm going to have links to all of these down in the description and in the pinned comment down below. So if you decide that you want to pull the trigger on any of these or all of these, whatever you want, the link will be in the description down below. So let's go ahead and go through this. I'm going to go through each one individually, and as I do, I will post the specs up on the screen and we'll talk about them. Let's get into it. All right, let's go ahead and start off with this guy. This is the Begg Knives Astio. That's spelled A-S-T-I-O. Now, this knife is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it pulls a lot of similarities, at least aesthetically speaking, from the Bodega, but it is in fact its own knife in its own right, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Astio is Italian or Latin for the grudge. Let's talk about it for a second. We've got G10 handle scales with they call this the bolt-on lock. It's essentially a frame lock that hides inside this G10 overlay / frame. It's kind of a cyborg looking deal that you got going on here, but that is actually trademarked to them. We have a fuller. I do want to mention that this fuller is not necessarily accessible for right-handed people because the lock bar actually gets in the way of being able to access that, which I'll be honest is a tiny bit of a bummer, but it is not in fact the end of the world. You do actuate it with this flipper tab, and that flipper tab works really well due to a very nice ceramic bearing. It's running off of a single-sided captive pivot, as it should, hallelujah, and it's got their trademarked ball bearing pocket clip. This ball bearing pocket clip is wonderful, by the way, because it's not going to destroy your pants. It goes in and out of the pocket really nicely, and it's not going to damage anything. You know, so no matter what you're wearing, it's going to come in and out of the pocket nice and smooth. It's not essentially a deep carry clip, but it's deep enough. You will notice that it has a ton of these screws. A lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, you're bolting on this bolt-on lock to this G10 frame, and it actually goes all the way underneath there, so it makes sense. I do like the extra screws. It definitely makes it pop. The one gripe that I have, and this is a tiny gripe, is that these are in fact T6 body screws, and I do feel like they should have gone T8 on those. That being said, it does also have this backspacer. This is about a half-length backspacer, and it's going to do a great job of protecting this compound ground D2 blade. This compound grind is absolutely bananas. Take a look at that. It transitions from a recurved hollow grind to a flat grind near the tip. Now, typically we see that turning point right at the end of the grind, but in this case, it doesn't. It goes all the way up here. That is actually really good because it means that you're going to stay in that cut for longer and you're going to maintain the sliciness all the way up until this tip. And the tip, even though it gets nice and thin there, it actually stays thick behind the spine all the way down to the tip itself. That's pretty dang crazy. We've got G10 steel ball bearing clip bolt-on lock D2 blade. And guys, I know what you're thinking. You're probably over there thinking,
oh my gosh, D2, I don't like D2.
Listen, D2 is great when it's done right. And this was definitely done right. Very similar to the Bodega in the way that the handle scale kind of swoops down and then back up to this harpoon style. I don't know what you would call this shape. It's somewhere between a Bowie, harpoon, Japanese / American tanto. It's just awesome is what it is. It's absolutely gorgeous looking. It's very, very aggressive, and it doesn't look like just about any other blade shape out there that I've seen before. So you have to give JVO Designs or Jared Van Otterloo, you got to give him some props because this man comes out with some amazing looking designs. Something else that I'm a huge fan of, and this is kind of understated but very important. You see that sharpening choil? That sharpening choil is awesome because if you look, it's far away from the plunge grind, which means that when you go to sharpen this, you're going to have a lot of life left in that edge, a lot of life left in that blade without giving it a smile that you don't want to. Too many knives don't have that, including knives that cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Speaking of the cost, you might be wondering, what does this one cost? The Astio is going to come in at about 120 bucks. The MSRP on it is somewhere around 140. So 120 bucks for this design is great. A big mistake a lot of people are going to make is they'll look at this and they'll say, oh, it's got D2. I don't think that it's worth that price at D2. But you know what a lot of knives that have D2 don't have? They don't have this excellent design language. They do make custom versions of these through their California custom group. They go for a lot more with super high-end premium materials, but those are going to go for, thousands of dollars, possibly more. This is giving you an opportunity to get a knife with an excellent detent, good lockup, really great fit and finish. Just look at how bang on center that is. And also innovative ideas like this bolt-on lock and the pocket clip. So yeah, it's a lot of knife for the money. And I don't think that you'd be disappointed. I know that I'm not disappointed at the $120 price point. This one definitely performs. All right, next up, we've got the Mini Glimpse. And if you go to their website, the Mini Glimpse is a knife that they claim is the ultimate EDC knife. This one is a little bit smaller, but very similar to the Spyderco Para 3 in that it's the perfect size, even for large size hands. That's what I've got is large size hands. And this one fits really well. Yes, it's a 3-inch blade, so the blade is on the smaller side, but it's still really good and it fits well in the hand. It only has one deployment option, and that is this flipper tab. But when you combine that with a really well-tuned detent, you get something that's really, really a lot of fun to flick out. And it's very fidgety in the sense that the detent is well-tuned, and the ball bearings, the ceramic ball bearings, do their job. This one is also a single-sided captive pivot, and I want to show this real quick. For all those manufacturers out there that keep giving us these double-sided pivots with the free spinning, you don't have to do that. Check that out. Like, that is simple. They didn't go ham on the blank side. It's just a blank end of a pivot. That's great, especially when you're trying to not overdo it and point out different aesthetics. It is going to be using T8 on the pivot. This one also has T8 on the body screws, T6 for the pocket clip screws. And with the screws on the outside, you don't have to worry about those screws being flat heads. They're totally fine with the dome heads the way that they are. Also, that clip is recessed into the G10. It does have steel liners, and on that liner lock, we're looking at a very solid 25% lockup, and it feels good. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right. G10 again on the handle scales, steel backspacer. That's about a quarter length backspacer, also made of steel. And look at that. That is just fantastic. It gives it this really edgy look. And if you do a reverse grip on this bad boy, you're definitely not going to be losing your grip from that thumb. It's very sturdy, and also it does poke up a little bit. So if you need to use this to break glass in case of emergency, you 100% could. It has a lengthwise ovoid lanyard hole if that's your thing. I don't think that this knife needs it, but if you have extra large hands, you know, it could possibly be there. To go ahead and continue the theme here, we've got a big old sharpening choil, and I'm going to call that a sharpening choil just because while I can do a trigger pull on this pretty comfortably, if you have bigger than regular sausage size fingers, that might not be available to you. For me, I can definitely trigger pull this and it feels great. If you look at the spine of the blade, it has this swedge all the way down to the tip. Only the very back part here is not, and that in fact is crowned, which is crazy design aesthetic. I'm a huge fan of that. We've got this bi-directional satin finish right here on the blade, which looks fantastic. And then of course, while there is no jimping, and that is normally something that I'm not a huge fan of, I will make an exception because that crowning on the very end of that spine looks and feels phenomenal. You also make up for that by having this jimping here on the lock bar tab. That actually gives you plenty of grip and plenty of stability in a regular saber grip. So great job on that. That is fantastic. The blade is running on this super deep hollow grind, and it looks great and it performs well as well. And it does get nice and thin here behind the tip. So stabbing into something is going to be pretty easy. This is quite possibly the craziest looking drop point. Some might even call it a spear point, but I absolutely love the aesthetics. It has a little bit of weight to it. I want to say that this is somewhere in the 4 ounce range. I did put the specs up on the screen, so you'll know if I was right in that estimate or not. But this one is perfect for EDC, and I do appreciate the fact that both the body screws and the pivot are T8. I don't mind that the pocket clip screws are T6. Ultimately, this is a beautiful design, very snappy action, very good fit and finish, perfectly lined up, good lockout, and it's probably one of my favorite flipper tabs that I've felt this year. This right here. I have one wish. My wish is that I could get this production style with titanium handle scales. I know if we do that, we're probably going to be looking at a multiple $100 knife, but I think that this one would be perfect. Production style with titanium handle scales and maybe something like 3V on the blade steel, or even CPM 154 would be great. 14C28M would be great. There's a lot that they could do with this design, and I'm really enjoying this one. When they say this is the ultimate EDC, I'm actually falling in love with it, and it's going to be getting a ton of pocket time with me. So this guy is actually something that you can find for around 80 bucks brand new, and I will make sure to link this down below. This is one that if you're looking for under $100 knife, this could definitely be something to consider. I think that there's not too many knives out there at this price point that gives you these design cues, this aesthetic, and this feel. The ergonomics on here are perfect. 80 bucks, trust me, at 80 bucks, this is a steal, and I definitely recommend it. Next up, we have the Diamici. This is another JVO, Jared Van Otterloo design. And guys, if you didn't know, Jared Van Otterloo is an award-winning knife designer out of the Pacific Northwest. I believe now he might be in South Africa. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to read up on his bio, but this is gorgeous. And they did let me know when they sent this to me that these inlays are actually not going to be the stock factory inlays. On this specific one, these are paper micarta, but they're going to look very similar to the G10 inlays that are going to come out. And when it comes to the inlay game, it's all about the transition from the inlay to the frame. And I'm telling you, that transition is smooth. You'd barely ever feel that transition at all. And that means that those inlays are in there very, very well. Continuing the theme with the single-sided captive pivot and ceramic ball bearings and the ball bearing pocket clip that's also recessed in, as well as a a quarter length backspacer. Guys, this is fantastic. And this is probably one of the prettiest of these knives. It has this gentleman feel. The action is nice and clicky. I'm getting a theme here where these detents are very well tuned. Now, I have nothing to complain about on this one. Even though this is a smaller knife with a 3-inch blade, I do get a nice 4-finger grip on here, no issue. It's on the medium to small side for a pocket knife, but it's not tiny. And it's definitely something that you could feel confident in using. This is going to be one of those things for guys that want something that's nice, that's leaning towards the overbuilt side, but isn't necessarily what I would consider to be overbuilt. This one is very, very well done, and the design cues are subtle. We're looking at a D2 blade, again, very well done D2. We're looking at great lockup. The lockup on this knife, being a liner lock, is fantastic. Is the blade center? You betcha. I really like the fact that the corner of the blade matches the corners of the handle scales. These are steel handle scales. And on this one as well, it does have T6 body screws. But Begg Knives, it's not too late, man. Put some T8 body screws in there if you can, because that would just absolutely make my day. I really enjoy this pocket clip. The pocket clip on this one looks more refined than it does on the previous models that we went over. And it looks great. It fits really well in the pocket. And that ball bearing clip does its job. It's going to slide in and out of the pocket with ease. No complaints on this one, and I definitely think that this one is worth checking out as well. Again, at the time of posting this video, these are still not released, but they will be soon. So make sure to check the links down below if this is one that you're interested in. I definitely think that you can't go wrong with this guy. This one is going to have the same MSRP as the Bodega and as the Astio, but I do expect it to be priced pretty similarly, somewhere around the $120 to $140 range. Now, lastly, this is the Bodega, and I saved this one for last because I've already checked it out. I linked it at the beginning, and you already know my thoughts on it. The big question is, have my thoughts changed? You know, did I decide that I didn't like it as much? Not at all. This knife was originally on the Blade Brothers Discovery Channel show of the Begg Knives show. That's right, they had a show back in 2012. If you're into knives, it might be worth looking it up. This one is just, it's the most overbuilt of all of them. The Fuller is 100% usable. It utilizes both the ball bearing clip as well as the bolt-on lock. It's a single-sided captive pivot with the flipper, and my favorite way to deploy it is actually with the Fuller. It's very clicky, very snappy, steel G10 D2. This one's going to be coming in at around 120 bucks. And guys, I still love this. This one has the most body screws, but it also is the most, it looks the most like a cyborg, and it just tickles me. This is one that when you pull it out, you got to be careful who you pull it out next to, because if they don't know knives, they might be a little bit on the scared side. But everything is clicky and snappy. The action is top notch. This one I would love to see in a more premium production model with maybe some micarta and titanium, if that's even possible. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is. You do get some internal milling on this steel bolt-on lock, which is nice, but it's still going to be coming in at over 5 ounces. It's going to be on the heavier side, but considering that the custom versions of these are super heavy, you know, this one is actually what they would consider to be a light Bodega. You still get this harpoon style spear point, which is great. And again, no jimping up here at the spine of the blade, but that's a-okay, because you can in fact trigger pull it for that extra stability. And if you're not, you do get some extra jimping right here. The ergos on here are wonderful. This feels great in the hands, and I do really enjoy it. Again, priced just like the Astio. In fact, I do think that they're worth a comparison here. If you had it up in the air and you said, Rollshambo, which one should I buy? Which one do you think is worth it? I'm going to tell you that it's really going to depend on a few things. First and foremost, this blade, this compound ground Tanto Harpoon recurve blade. There's no competition. This is the best looking blade out of the bunch that I've showed so far. It's going to have similar design cues like the jimping on the back spacer. It's going to have the same great action. This one does look a bit more updated with the pivot collar, but they both have ceramic bearings, good lockup, great action, and the same materials. The ergonomics on this one are going to actually feel, in my opinion, a little bit better. A lot of that has to do with the fact that while neither of these knives are thin, the Astio is quite a bit thinner than the Bodega. That's also going to mean that it's a bit lighter as well. And so it's going to slide in and out of your pockets and be a bit more versatile as far as how you can carry it, when you can carry it, and how it fits there. Neither one of these are small knives, and neither one of these are going to leave you disappointed. And my best advice is that if you can and you're kind of stuck on which one you should get between the two of these, get them both. And then thank me later, because these are both knives that are really, really fun to handle, and they're not going to disappoint you in the short term or in the long run. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on these knives. Which one is your favorite? Have you picked one of these up? Are you going to pick one of these up? These are all knives that are in the Steelcraft series. So these are not the Steel series knives that were kind of that production mid-range that I mentioned before. These are the Steelcraft, and I think that they're all awesome. I'm going to be checking out more of these designs here in the future, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with, because I've gotten a peek at some of the upcoming knives, and this is just the beginning, guys. So let me know in the comment section down below, which one is your favorite? Are you planning on picking one up? Have you already picked one up? If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boohoo, I'll catch you in the comment section. And if you want to see more awesome knife content, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.